So this slideshow is dedicated to my pup Pippin in her memory. In designing and collaging a quilt, having a story about the subject is very helpful throughout the process. A story helps choose the subject matter, can point you in a direction when it comes time to narrow down your fabric choices, and gives you ideas about how to finish the background behind the main image. This quilt came about due to a rescue dog who came to us from Georgia to Maine. That's her on the left. When I described her to our pet food lady, she said, "Oh, she's a Dixie Dingo." "A what?" I asked. I looked it up on the internet, and sure enough, there were a bunch of dogs that looked like Pippin right there on the bottom. In comparison, in the upper right is a 100% Australian dingo. Wild dingoes are of course found in Australia. We had only adopted a look-alike of mixed origin. However, it did get me thinking about a future quilt of our dog using Australian Aboriginal print fabric. You may or may not know that Australian Aboriginal art is layered with symbolism and stories. Stories of journeys, individuals, communities, and animals. Starting on a portrait of our dog meant picking a photo of her. I chose this one, since part of Pippin's story is how she loved to nap in the sunshine. Plus, this ladylike way she had of sitting always amused us. I traced the photo, giving myself a guide for the collage that included the important features, plus her contours and the light and dark areas. Then I enlarged the tracing to Pippin's actual size and traced it onto foundation fabric. And that's what you see there in the lower left. Australian Aboriginal fabrics are colorful with large and bold high contrast prints. Pippin had the appropriate boldness in her, but she was a one-color pup. However, yellows work great as highlights, and blues work as shadows, and the lines and contours that I found in these prints worked perfectly for her drawn lines and contours. Oops. Sorry, I skipped ahead. By working on the head first, I established which fabrics, colors, and values gave me the look I was after. Whoops. Sorry. Okay, moving on to other body parts, I could then repeat the appropriate color and value range. A variety of fabric shapes are cut out first based on what I see in the fabric print. Then I move them around on the drawn design and trim to fit. Pippin was a very muscular dog. Our vet guessed she had some Australian cattle dog in the mix, explaining why she loved to run and tried to herd children. When the quilt was done and out there, we received emails and even videos from cattle dog owners and rescues, defining what is called the cattle dog sit. So now Pippin's story expanded to include not only the Dixie Dingo reference, but a definite connection to some cattle dog lineage. I work from photos and continually reference them as I go along, adding layers and details to the collaged image. Eventually, it's time to consider the background, which sometimes has already coalesced in my mind, other times not. Such was the case with this quilt, and we're asking, what is the story? Really comes in handy. Inspiration for backgrounds can also come from the fabrics themselves. There we go. I already mentioned how Aboriginal art tells stories with the use of symbolism. For instance, circles can represent a campfire or a village. Lines are journeys. A circle intersecting a line is a pause in that journey. A U-shaped curve is a person, like a butt print. The photo I worked from caught Pippin doing one of her favorite things, falling asleep in the sunshine. So I narrowed my background ideas to a big old sun. I designed my own stylized version, including 4 major rays or lines, the journeys of 4 of our family, my husband, son, myself, and Pippin. Back to fabrics, cutting out and around the designs and symbols that I may find useful. Not knowing where or how they'll fit in, I create a palette of shapes that I can move around and see where they'll work. As you see here, the journey lines that will outline the four lines don't match the drawing. That's okay. The fabric takes priority. Circles are added to the journey lines in a way to add interest and balance to the design. There are probably parts and symbols from 6 to 8 different fabrics, collaged to create the sun so far. Making my own story, at the very center is the fire in the fire pit in our yard, surrounded by the circle of our small town community. The 4 journey rays radiate out with the 4 of us, me, Tom, Sam, and the dog, seated around the campfire, the 4 blue U shapes. We happen to be having dinner outside. Since our oval gathering baskets are full, they're large spots symbolizing food. Through many edits, I did leave those 5 green circles as pauses on our journeys. I had placed them in spots I had liked for the overall design, even though one journey had 2 circles on it. Much later, a student pointed out that that journey must be Pippin's, since she had paused somewhere else before she found us and her home. I'd like to say I planned it that way, but actually it was a serendipitous design moment. The background also has elements that represent 2 other members of our immediate family, Max the cat being one of them. The black and white lines wandering horizontally are his journey. As another adoptee, there's an unknown number of pauses before he made his way to us. He loved to be outside but came inside at night. The paths above Pippin's head lead Max through the stylized doorway and back home. Kiora the budgie was a small but mighty member of our family, well worthy of the emu footprints fabrics placed inside that doorway on the right side of the quilt. Though we tried to discourage it, she did lay many, many eggs in her lifetime, and one of the fabrics includes nests of eggs placed in honor of her efforts. So this portrait quilt of Pippin tells the story of our entire family at that moment in time. Oddly enough, more people have told me it's their favorite quilt over all my other quilts. I sometimes wonder if the depth of story worked into the background, known or not by the viewer, adds an extra layer of sentiment to the quilt. Or perhaps it's Pippin's satisfaction of who and where she is that they pick up on. The title of this quilt is Dixie, Dingo, Dreaming. The quilt label is a sort of mini fabric collage, including 6 Australian honey ants, symbolizing the 3 humans and the 3 fur and feather people in the family, and 2 paw prints. One is the drawn Aboriginal symbol for a dingo. The other is the hesitantly given autograph of our pup. The deadline for finishing Dixie Dingo was to get her into the 2011 Houston International Quilt Festival in response to a call for entries for a Good For You special exhibit theme. She won first place in that exhibit. My mom accompanied me to that show, and I was proud to share the moment with her. Back home, Pippin herself was quite nonchalant and unimpressed. Years later, on a trip to Australia, my ears perked up when I heard of a dingo encounter at a wildlife rescue park. I was accepted, kissed, and sat upon by this Aussie dingo. And now when I search the internet for Dixie Dingo, images of my own dingo girl pop up. That's her, 4th from the left in the middle. Pippin has joined the World Wide Web. I will never know Pippin's entire life story, but I do know the one she had with us. And now a part of that journey I can share with you through her quilt, Dixie Dingo Dreaming.